That is going. And just before I duck off, Jason, I just wanted to introduce you and hand over. Hello, everybody. Introduce myself. My name is Kurt Bell. I'm the project manager for the EnerGov project for the city of Ventura. Today, June 30th, we're beginning 4 days of EnerGov UAT training. Now, if you're not familiar with it, what UAT means, that's user acceptance. Basically, it's user acceptance testing. So this is actually and Jason will keep me honest here, but typically this UAT training is to prepare our subject matter experts to validate, to test the EnerGov application as it's been customized and prepared by Tyler Technologies to make sure that it's ready to go into production. So this is a little bit different maybe from normal training insofar as it's kind of tailored towards UAT, but we wanted to take advantage of the fact that of this online setting to invite as many of you as possible in. So especially for this first day and a half of training, which is going to be the introductory part, there's a schedule associated with the calendar invite that breaks down the timing of the different parts that Jason will be covering, Jason, our instructor, will be covering in the training. I apologize, there was a mistake there between the start time. The start time is actually 9 o'clock, so don't worry about it. This says 8:30 in the training time, it's actually 9 o'clock. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand over to Jason Hufnagel. Jason, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, UAT stands for User Acceptance Testing, and this training exercise we'll be going over multiple ways of how to best way to document it, as well as keeping everyone in the loop of knowing how to.
I'm sorry, Jason. Anybody back there, if you happen to have your microphone on, if you could please mute it unless you have a question, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, but yes, UAT training, it is to help the SMEs as well as the most experienced users in Ventura be able to navigate EnerGov and be able to test all the configuration we've done. I know currently we've had people from planning, building, fire, and public works and land development. They've been validating and checking the configurations currently and up to this point, but for further training of how to document this further and to open it up to more people in those departments, this is what the training will cover. I do have a suggestion. If anyone has any questions moving forward, put it in the, put something in the chat saying, asking Kurt or me to say you have a question. I have that open just in case, so I can, I'll give it to the floor to you. That way, we're not, talking over each other in this. Okay, so I'm gonna just go over the goals of this week. The goals and objective is just to navigate in EnerGov successfully, being able to log in and see everything that you should be seeing, including GIS. That includes being able to start and search for permits, addresses, seeing how the geo rules work, as well as test all the configuration and see how invoicing works with the cashiering, as well as being able to identify and log issues in the SharePoint and having access to that. We'll also be doing separate department reviews with the SMEs, and whoever else in that department is more than welcome to come as well. We'll be going over process by process, making sure everything looks good, and then I'll be showing them further along how to test if they want to go a deeper dive into it as well. We'll also be doing oh, sorry, I just got one question from Joey. What's an SME? An SME is a subject matter expert. So whoever is the department, whoever in that department is an expert on how the processes work from the clerk side or how, reviews are done or how inspections are done or priorities, all that will be done within each department. But the next, we will be doing IG Inspect, and that is a mobile inspection configuration done with an iPad or a Windows tablet, and that you can see how people in the field will be able to check inspections for multiple things or add inspections for that permit or plan. We'll also be I will also be asking everyone on this call to identify any action items that you see fit. Anything from me that you want to call out to let me know. Maybe for me to change something for the next day to see something you're not seeing currently. And also we will be showing the cashiering module to the finance department. They want to see what is in EnerGov in the base model of it. I don't know if we will be covering Tyler cashiering, which is a separate software, but I will show the original just cashiering module to them. So after I just got through that, any questions moving forward? Annmarie, you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm just thinking that as far as the cashier module, if we can know ahead of time when that's going to be done, because there's all across the modules, everybody uses that, and we should all see how the functionality of that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
I will find a perfect time to let everyone know about that besides just the finance department.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay. So after all that, let's actually see what EnerGov is. So this is the home page for what majority of people will be seeing. I don't know if anyone can be logging in from home. I talked to Kurt. Originally, he said, due to VPN access, most people will not be able to do this during this training. But this is what you should see with a omnibar on top. With this functionality, you can search for anything in EnerGov. If you want to search for plans, you type in plan and you go into here and it'll search right here on top. And you can manage plans from here. You can check, if you were going to change any configuration, you could go to plan type, plan work class, plan type group, all these different things, and plan reports viewer as well for anyone that wants to, create any reports within the planning module. So just as an example, I'm just going to click planning. In here, this is just how the planning will look currently within EnerGov. You can create a new one, and choose your planning type. I know a majority of the planning department has been using the planning, zero planning project module, plan type, and we'll have additional info in here. We'll have, anything you would need to put in there, use permit, historical landmark, affordable housing, data archive. All these are information that you could enter into EnerGov. You can also link records. In here, you have the permits and inspections, plans and applications. You can link everything to this as long as it's opened up and it's, it can, for let's say the planning project, you can link multiple, plans. So like right here, these are all the plant P1s that will be linked within the planning department. They can do. Any questions so far?
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
Just want to chime in on a second on the GoToMeeting. For those of you who have not used this software before, it's possible to adjust the application module so you can get more real estate if you like. For example, the one thing across the top that shows all the cameras of people, which are basically everybody's camera shut off, so that's dead real estate. You can just lift that up and that'll increase the amount of screen you can see Jason's working screen clearer. You can likewise get rid of the bar on the right. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Kurt. But yes, I just wanted to show how this can work. And I just want to, start off right here, and I'm just going to create just a plan just for the sake of it. So in here, we have addresses built in with the for Ventura. So I'm just going to put 450 in here. And so this says a live link with Ventura's, and live link is the application that will be able to integrate the GIS. So we'll be able to see the street names and their addresses. So in doing so, after adding the address, I have also just added the parcel data as well. And we also have the ability to parcel split process. I will be showing that later on today, but I just wanted to show you that quickly. So now that the address has been added, you can move forward. You can add contacts. And so for this, though, every one of these contacts, they need to have a contact type. And so we have an applicant, we have architects, business owners, many different options here. If you see an option while you're testing, please let me know and we can add it. I mean, this is for anyone, anyone that needs something. If they definitely need a certain one, if they see something is not filled in that, they think their department would need, or you think, the citizen would need, please let me know and we can add that contact type. Just gonna hit save right here. So for this planning module, the fees can be added manually as well.
Hey, everybody, could you please mute your microphone if you don't have it muted already? Thank you.
You can add any one of these fees right here: animal raising permit, annexation, appeals, certificate of compliance, coastal development permit. And just for an example, I'm just going to add coastal development permit. When adding it, it immediately adds the 5% for the GP as well as the technology fee. And so it intakes how much that costs, $2,683, and puts the correct percentage in there as well. And so immediately you have fees associated with this. And after doing so, I'm going to go into the workflow details and add coastal development permit as well. So now that that's saved, I'm going to go back to this project. Go back here, and I'm going to look up my linked records and see with this P0, it already links to this coastal development permit. Now we can go in here and we can build an invoice as well, straight off of this page for P0. I'm just going to do that really quickly. And you can make any adjustments as well. You can add any other extra fees that are associated fees as well. There is an option for miscellaneous fees. We have not added those in there yet currently, but we can moving forward. We can add those in there. Currently, the only billing contact on here is Noel Morin from Morin Construction. You can add more contacts and make ones that are billing as well. You can add multiple billing contacts on here, as well as making any notes. Also, you can create a document. This is the standard documents. We'll be creating more of these and adding those in during the week, hopefully, as well as after. So you can test out the reports and the documents that will be needed to send out to clients, send to or to keep for your own personal records for the city. As well, you also be able to see the history of what happens in the invoice. So once I were to save this, you would see you would see later on. Let's see. Hold on one second. So this just created the invoice number right here up on top, as well as it just added and created the history for this. So I'm underneath the username of Ben Bergman, and it created, and it said it invoice added. And so whoever users are in here, you can see the history of what's happening within each invoice, within each plan as well. You can see what happens, computed fees, you can see start date, workflow status, anything that you would want to see in the history to make sure, to watch what's happening. So if people are deleting fees or removing or adjusting fees, let's say for like the invoice, that can all be stored in the history as well. And for this example, I'm just going to hit pay now. Now, I think I only have set up the payment app method is for cash for this currently. We will be adding all the other ones. There's multiple options for different payment types. But let's say for payment received, let's just put this in here. Now, I just hit save, and I said the payment received is a payment applied, and the transaction said it was complete. Boom. Now you can also end up going in here and voiding this as well currently, as well as you can, print the screen, copy ID, as well as if you wanted to have a receipt document, you could create that report. And so this is just a standard one. This is not going to be what you guys will be seeing in the end product, but I just wanted to show this real quickly. Sorry for the delay. So on here, it immediately says, the reference number, it has the plan case number. So it's project 00113 2020. And it says the fee name, how it was paid, and the total. And so other information could be added to this as well. Right now, it just has the billing contact. You could add, the address to here, right here on the bottom. You could have your logo up on top. We can get rid of the Tyler logo over here as well. But all those things could be added into a receipt report. So that was just one example of that. But in this training, that's what will be going on. As well, since there's no workflow for the coastal development permit, all the workflow will be done within the planning project. So, they will, once that is begun, you'll have the application review, which will have notes and everything else sent around. It's an activity. You'll also have the DAC cover sheet, which is very similar to the DAC conditions and comments. This will be the review process, and for each department, as well as each item review. So like, let's say environmental services, the item review, you'll have assigned users. So for stormwater, currently we have it set up for Peter Schellenberger. Land development, we have Chandra leading that one. For Parks and Rec, we have Andy Torres, and these are all the other options we can assign who is going to be reviewing this plan, as well as, building and safety, planning, water and sewer. All these are different assigned users that will be assigned to them. Now, I know I talked to Joe Moreli about this in the past, about documenting time. Am I correct about this, Joe?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is what we come up with. Please let me know what you think. I showed it to a couple different people, and they were okay with it. It is a time tracker. So, you add time tracker here, you add your time type. So these are just different item reviews, just for an example. I was going to add them all in there before, but I just want to make sure. So let's say if I'm a building and safety, if I'm doing a building and safety review, it has my user, or if I'm going to log the time for someone else, I can do that as well. I can, let's say I'm logging the time in for Kurt, um, and depending on, you can choose. So I'm going to do Joe Barejas as well. So I can do billable rate, I can do non-billable rate, and you can set the billable rates for each one of the reviewers as well. And then set up time, and then you can, do total of hours, and then, billable amount. And you can also even bill as well from this. I don't know if this is going to be okay. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I want to see what works for the whole team because, it affects everybody. But one question I had is if this is someone, for instance, if we have a technician logging their time to process a permit, plus there's also the plan checker's time, are both entered in the same place, and can it be entered by person?
Yes. Multiple people can add this in as long as they have a user, and even if they don't have, let's say they weren't doing they don't have a user account set up in EnerGov, someone else can enter that time for them. What was that last question I saw from Annmarie?
Right. The question I have is, are we able to report on this? And
yes.
Do we have to? So I'm assuming that with each review, the user will have to track their time independently.
Yes, they will have to.
Okay.
They can, or if you have, let's say, an assigned clerk who just, they send in their emails at the end of the day saying, hey, on this one I worked this many, and they go and enter all the time information for every single one of the users.
But we are, I'm sorry, Jason, we are able to report on this.
Yes, you are able to report on this, and you'll have comments in here as well. These won't be like, let's say, review comments for the time tracking log. That will be done within the review process.
Yeah.
You can do that there. This will just be for comments of, saying why maybe it took longer.
I missed the first 10 minutes of the meeting. Are we doing an EnerGov training this morning?
Someone's got their mic.
Not for me? Not yet? Okay.
No, yeah, this is different.
Yeah. So someone's got a hot mic there.
No, it's fine. But yes, so yes, Annmarie, you are able to, track anyone's time, as well as also, if it's not billable, you can also mark it non-billable. And if you don't want to charge from here, if you want to charge from a different fee, we can set up a fee for this as well. So I just wanted to show this quickly. So immediately, you can do, end time, and, wow, I don't know why that just jumped like that. But yes, you are allowed to enter in time. And so for Joe Barejas' billable rate, I set it as $100 per hour, just as an example. And each one of the time types, we will be doing, each one will be doing, let's say, a different name of like the review. So let's say water and sewer, that'll be a time type. If you want to do, let's say, I know Joe just mentioned like intaking a permit, we can do that one as well. I don't know what you would want to call that, but we can make any of those different time types. Please come up with a list of, what ones you want to add for that. I will be adding all the ones in here for the item reviews. If that's what we're going to go ahead with, I can go ahead and do that. Okay. On that matter, I also want to be showing everyone this. Right, I just want to make a small cutover real quick. So this is SharePoint for the city of Ventura. This is what we'll be this is where we will be tracking information for system tracking, as well as different changes and issues moving forward. It'll be done on the system change tracker. Currently, I have one in there. I took over one of the items that was in the internal test tracker that was not done yet, and I added it in here just because with internal test tracking, you know, I'm just gonna mark those all as closed and move everything over here that was open. That way, everything stays open. And for this, for all the people involved with adding in different tracking information, you'll just, you know, click new, you know, select your priority, and in here we'll have UATs. I haven't added all the modulifications for this, all the customization. And you'll choose your item type, who you posted it by, reported by, and then assigned to. The assigned to, for the most part, is just going to be, you're going to assigning it to me, Jason Hufnagel, and the status will be pending response from Tyler once that happens. And then you'll put your item description in here. I know majority of the SMEs currently know how to use this, but just in case anyone below them, let's say anyone in, you know, the planning department who isn't, let's say, you know, Veronica or Lisa wants to add things in here, or, you know, Elizabeth, they can add things in here as well. Same goes for all the different departments. You can add anything in here. The big key here is to making sure this thing moves along. Whatever issue occurs in there and it gets resolved, even if there are other issues, let's say if the issue was, you know, fees won't allow credit cards to pay on the invoice, and that gets resolved, and then you check back later and go, oh, checks don't work either. Please make a new tracker item for that. That way we don't have things opening up and continuing like, you know, an open tracker item. That way when things get opening, they get closed, you know, just piling on more and more work onto that one item. That way we can see in a more clear level of what items need to be addressed. So instead of it, like, you know, if this first one right here was open and it had multiple changes being done to it, you know, numerous times, but for different things, it should have been created a different item, since it was different items being added or changed, or, you know, or different issues being added to that. Does that make any sense at all? I apologize if it didn't.
I think that does make sense. Yeah, you simply want to make sure that each issue is identified as its own issue, and if child issues spring up, we want to make sure we track them separately and discuss, right?
Yes.
And Jason and I and Jason Kim, the other project manager, are here to help with that. So we'll be keeping an eye on these items. Just want to chime in while I can. I think someone that has a telephone who's calling in on the phone, not on your computer, you might be the person that has your mic open. We can hear some coughing. If you're calling in on using the application, there is actually a mute option there as well. And if you're calling in on the phone number directly, you can always mute the phone on your end as well. We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So let me get back to here. So this is the continuation of that management plan as well. You know, we have the address here. We have the fees invoiced, and let me just refresh. They should be paid in full. Status change right there. Now you can also add activities as well as notes to this. Please, you know, check everything while you're going through this. I know we talked about in the past about adding conditions, so I just want to add one right here just to show you what this looks like. We did this because we were going to add these to reports for planning for certain, I believe it was, which one it was. It was maybe temporary use permit. We're adding different conditional uses, or sorry, temporary sign. So let me just add this one right here. And so in here, for multiple conditions, you can create ones you can have just different categories. So let's say, you know, I just created a couple for temporary sign for the banner. and it's 1, 2, and 3. Now, I know a lot of people were hesitant to talk about using this because they would have to use the scope. This has to be touched and it cannot be defaulted, but how this works, the scope will be the project, and so the project is anything that is related to this project. And so you can, search for multiple projects in here. And so if this project was added, anything that was associated with this project number would be associated to that condition. So whatever condition this is, it would be associated. The case is just this plan case. Whatever case this is, that is just that that scope to that, how that condition gets applied. And then the other scope category is property. So if I were to select property, anything that I would do in any further plan, permit, anything moving forward, anything with this parcel or address would show up with this condition of temporary sign banner. And that's how that scope would work for that. You can also mark things satisfied. You can add comments in here, and then also change it around how the order will be, how it will look for these as well. I just wanted to show you guys that and how that works. And more conditions can be made. Let me just show you guys that as well. So this is the conditional library. I can add and subtract, as many, conditions as needed, and I can add more categories as well on the configuration side.
Jason, is this functionality available in the permit module?
Yes, it is. Yes.
It is. Okay. And with that functionality, will it print on the actual permits if we have a specific condition prior to final, or?
If you were to choose, if you want certain conditions on certain permits, yes, we can add that functionality to, let's say, reports and stuff like that. Yes.
But to specifically print on the permit.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, and then so if there's a lot of language involved, that can be added in there for the conditional. Since this is a memo field, it can add multiple text. I believe the limit is right around, I think, 350 to 400. I'm not 100% certain on that. Maybe even a little bit more than that as well for character-wise. I'll have to, fool around with it. But so you can add in those things. We can also script in if you have, let's say, I don't know how many conditions you have for building and safety, Annmarie. Maybe, let's say you have, 900 or 800. We can script those in and then drop them in there with, a category of building and safety, or for certain permits, you want them, just categorized for certain ones.
Right. So, and to just clarify, this is different than review comments and corrections, right?
Yes, the conditions. Yes, that is. It's okay. It is different. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason.
So, with that, we also have. As I was saying, so the different conditions in there as well for each one of these plans and permits. We also have bond information. I know when I was checking the information for the the contractors. They have bonds. That information can also be added in here as well. It's in the bond module. I can show you quickly how that looks. And so currently, these are the bond types, cash, faithful performance bond, grading bond. All this information, is in here, and it has the ability to, add it to that permit. To, let's say I want to add this bond in here and put all the principal, the surety, and the obligee in here as well, and the amount and current amount. All that information can be added in here. You can also, from here, this is the document folder. So in here you have, these are just the standard ones. And in here you have, just different ways of tracking different things going on within the plan. please, by all means, whoever is, checking each one of these permits and plans, please start, testing out all these different functionalities of EnerGov. You can also add attachments to a plan case or a permit case. So let's say someone came in and when they gave you the plan for this, like, the printed out document, you can scan the item and add it into add it to the case and add an attachment, and then, browse on a computer and add it to the case as well. So I'm just gonna quickly just do that. So I just added this landscape plan. You can add more as well. Once that's added, I can add it to attachments groups and make it available for online if you're going to use CSS. And I can show you that as well. That is a internet ability to able to apply for permits online. I know with everything going on with COVID-19, that might sound very appealing to the city of Ventura. I've talked about it with Kurt in the past. We potentially talk about rolling it out in the phase 2 of this project, but it is an availability to this. I can show you that at a later date.
Jason, this is Kurt. Can I ask you a question about the document?
Yes.
So being the newbie here, I really don't know this stuff like everyone else, but something jumps out at me. Can I launch the documents from here into Bluebeam? Or can I pull them? Do they get pulled from here if I try to open them from Bluebeam?
So yes, you can pull them through Bluebeam. Are you guys wanting to see the Bluebeam e-reviews demo today? Kurt?
If you
I'd be interested.
Yeah, I was waiting to see what they thought. Yeah, if you have time, I think we would love to make popcorn and see that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can we do it right? Let's say 11 o'clock your time, and then give me like 30 minutes before that happens. That way I can get it all set up, making sure it all works.
Sure.
It won't be in your environment. It'll be in our test environment. But yes, I can show you how that works.
All right. And so we were planning to take a break maybe around 10:30 or so. We want to make sure you get a break as well, though. Is this something that would be better to do during tomorrow's session to give you a chance to set that up?
Possibly, yes. Or we could do it even right after lunch. I just, need a little time to make sure everything's running smoothly.
Okay. Very good. And a little time to eat, of course, right? So.
Yes.
So maybe right after lunch, because that may be when we have the greatest audience here still. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Majority of this time, I was hoping everyone was going to be able to log in and wasn't just going to be me showing things. Mostly because I want to see how each user gets to see their own, interface and how their own dashboard appears. Just making sure everyone can log in. I also want to know, I know from your standpoint, just moving forward, I know this is just a quick thing. What are the users who will be using the IG Inspect application? And I apologize for breaking away from 2 seconds to talk about that. Does Annmarie or Joe know about that?
Hi, it's me. I'm assuming it's going to, for sure, building and safety, fire, and I'm not sure if Public Works or land development is going to use the inspect.
That's fine. That's fine. I just need to know who the user is. Since I can't, in the contract, it's only made for 8 users currently. That's what's in the contract when I was looking at it recently.
So you're talking, Jason, you're talking 8 end users?
Yes.
Okay, so then it may sound like it may just be for building and safety, but I don't know. That we would probably need clarification on that.
I'll jump in. This is Neda, Zaire, Assistant Community Development Director. I'm just going to speak in terms of the steering committee. The long-term goal would be that everybody who is doing inspections within the city of Ventura would be using IG Inspect. So that would be building and safety, that would be planning, that would be fire, and that would be public works. I don't know if they're all planned to have that in the first phase, but ultimately that would be where we would want to go with final implementation.
Okay. All right. Will the people involved, let's say on Friday, I just want to make sure have the ability to use iPads or Windows devices to test out their access into the system? I've already tested out Merit's access before. I just want to make sure everyone else can log in, and I just want to make sure. I just want to give access to a couple different people so they can check.
I'm having difficulty logging into VPN period, so it would be helpful to get that so I can test all the building and safety stuff.
Okay. Well, the inspections, the IG Inspect, it won't need to be running through the VPN, which is a benefit for that. So you can just log in with, let's say, an iPad or a or the Windows device, the Windows tablet. That's how you would use that. And I could set it up for you or Annmarie, or I can set it for Joe. I can set it for, I think Joe already has an access to it currently. I have to check to make sure his is working, but currently I know Merit's is.
Jason, this is Mark Wild with Public Works. I've noticed the term IG Inspect. Does IG stand for anything that we need to know, or is it just a tool for field inspection?
It's just it was created by the development team for Tyler, and there was a name to it, but I've asked people about the IG part of it, and there really isn't. It's just a mobile inspection tool or application. That's all it stands for.
I sent this meeting request to Ernie Frere, our principal for Public Works inspection, and all the Public Works inspectors have cellular iPads, so they would be able to log on and test that if that's what's wanted by the group, and if it's available. So we'll hear more maybe from Ernie here later today. And I told him it would probably be the time to jump on, so it'll give him some time to get organized, and for the rest of you to kind of make a decision whether you want to have Public Works available during that time or not.
So everybody, this is Kurt. I'm beginning to collect names of people that will need this. Obviously Annmarie, Merit, Joe, etc. So if you have names, just send me an email and let me know, and we'll make sure that those people have the ability to do this when the time comes. Now, Jason, you mentioned Friday. Did you mean Thursday?
Yes, I meant Thursday. I apologize.
No problem. So just send me an email with your names, and I'll have them on the list, and we'll work between now and Thursday to make sure that they have what they need.
Okay, Kurt, I'll keep you copied with Ernie's group.
Thank you.
Okay. Glad I can discuss that. Okay. So I don't know how many users have actually been in the system. Maybe a handful, I'm assuming, from the attendees.
I think it's mostly our subject matter experts, for those who've been working with us. Okay. Please mute your phone if you can, if you've got background noise. Thank you.
So with this time and everything else, since I'll just be presenting, is Roger's not here. He'll be here in later afternoon, correct, Kurt?
I believe he's coming this afternoon. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to show one demonstration of how the geo rules will be working currently as they are set up. They're only set up for a couple different permits just to make sure they're working, but here they are. So I am doing a building commercial permit, OTC, alteration interior. Immediately have fees firing. add the contact. And we'll be going through this later today, Annmarie, going over the different configurations of this, making sure things are done correctly. So I have my applicant on here as well. It has 2 required fields for all of fire and for public works, as well as building and safety. Described work must be filled in. So this additional info must be filled in for all permits for building and safety, fire, and public works, from what I remember.
That's correct.
Yes, same for fire.
In here as well, and then it's also this other one is completeness by. We don't have the list yet. Hopefully by some point in UATs, we'll at the end of UATs or a couple weeks later, we can add the completeness by. All the different people we can add to the pick list for this. But just for this currently, I'll just do that, and I'm just gonna hit save. Now I'm gonna go to my permit details and add my address. So I'm going to add 450. I'm going to go to Baker Avenue again. It associates the parcel number, and then it's also doing the geo rules right now as well. Hit save. And so these are how the geo rules are coming in currently. So the coastal zone is blank, the fault zone is blank, the fire sector is 4, flood zone is X 100%, urban on zone for the high fire, blank for hillside, and then lot area 6043. So this is the information that's being pulled in from this parcel data. And by hitting this button as well, I can also search and see where it's located. I can zoom out, as well as, identify anything else on here as well. I can see the city zone. I can see, anything that was needed to be for this. That's already originally on here. I can see the APN. I can see the parcel shape. This is just some of the functionality of EnerGov. And please make sure when people are testing this that you can use and you are seeing the map service. I want to make sure all the users involved, and I'm saying users, I mean end users, so people who are actually using this can see the GIS map service. But we'll also have, so this is all set up with Silverlight currently, and this is all done with Internet Explorer. We are moving forward by the 2020 deadline to have everything off of Silverlight. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like as well. And this is where our HTML5 version will look like. So it immediately populates a new window. Since it won't be in Silverlight, it won't be in its own tab. And this will be, you'll be using the HTML5 version for the new functionality for Bluebeam moving forward. There are some missing features in the HTML5 version currently. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up and show you what exactly it looks like though, to move forward. So you can also, test this out for planning and permit for, for your different departments. So with this GIS information, it pulls in the parcel as well, shows the map right here as well. You can also have spatial collections, and for that, that has the ability to create your own polygons and shapes on the map. So if you were going to add a spatial collection to this, you can, let's say, draw a box around a block or around a neighborhood, and add that to the permit. And that could be for information. Mostly spatial collections are used for code cases, so that might be useful, adding that functionality to that when phase 2 happens, since I know that's when that's will be involved. Also, you can also have the owner information being added to the GIS information. That would take a lot more work for the cities to make sure all that information gets transferred over, constantly of people buying and selling homes, but that can be done. And so this, right now it says, no association, but as you go through, multiple times, maybe, certain addresses and homes do get associated. You can link that with that link button right there to any contacts within EnerGov. So I'm just going to do permit again. I'm going to do commercial permit, PLCK. Make an alteration interior. So it immediately just populated this Ventura district. This is built in it, so it does not, you need a district to fire. It has this little asterisk right here. I don't know if everyone can see it. So these little asterisks are required fields. They don't show up as red items, but they do show. They won't let you process all. They won't let you confirm this permit until all things are taken in. And so for square footage, you can add in here. I know Annmarie was asking for this to be added. I didn't know what the category needed to be. It doesn't. This is just for a test. I just put in value, but let me just put in a square footage in here.
We can go over that during our training. Thanks, Jason.
That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to do 45 by 35, adding 1,575 square feet, hit update. And then if you wanted it to do anything in here as well, making, evaluation, you can choose from this as well. These are just preloaded valuations for each one of these groups we have built in. So if you want to put in things in for, residence or hotel, multiple family, I'm just going to put this one in here. And so that gets added as well. I'm going to hit next, move along, and fill out any additional information in here as well. So this is how the custom fields show up in HTML5. This will change the new update, but this is how it currently looks. This, like I said, this will be addressed in the new update for EnerGov moving forward for the 2020 release this June. These custom fields will move around since this was a big block of text like this. And in HTML5, unfortunately, it just gives it one line. So you put all the information in here. You have the new building address. No. Just go in here and check that. Okay. But so these are all the, on top, you can see these are all the different tabs. This is what it looks like moving forward. As well, you can say, expense calculations, this will trigger a fee. As well as anything else in here you need to track. You can track, these are all tracking items as well. This is the imported info. VAX use code, the inspector, garage SF, lender info, anything, you can add the workers' comp information in here. And I can show, after this, I'll show you the contractor validation of how that looks as well. As well as the business licensing can also be, there's information in here as well for that. Going through, let me just hit pick for staff. Now that I have that, I'm gonna hit next. And so now I have to add a contact. I'm gonna add Lisa to this. Hopefully, Lisa, this doesn't just start bombarding your email. I apologize if it does.
I'll let you know.
I'm going to put you are a developer on here and you are a billing contact. But I can also have the availability to, when you're doing this, you can, instead of in a Silverlight version, for you to have multiple contacts on here, you would have to keep adding the same person multiple different times, saying, they're the contact, they're the contractor. And for this, you can just say, you just keep adding to this in the new HTML5 version. Now, I'm going to choose to add some files as well in here. Add the residential building plan as well. Gonna make some notes to them. And by clicking this pencil as well, you can also open up and have more text availability in here. So instead of it just running around and just running like this, you could see everything that's being typed in here. So this added some fees in here: building permit fees, building plan check fees, fence fee, as well as some state and strong GIS building footprints and general plan fees and technology fees as well. Now this HTML5 version does not work as great as it does in Chrome. It's probably the best to use it in Chrome if you were going to check it. But I'm just using it in here, and that's why it's loading. That's why it's taking a couple seconds. So any questions on the HTML5 version of this?
Hey, Jason.
Jason,
Yes.
is there an opportunity for like a client portal or some way in which the applicant can actually upload most of their information prior to us going on and filling in the rest of it? Or do we have to do all of it by hand?
No, you can, and it's called CSS. It's the client services support. Let me bring up that. Hold on one second. I can show you what in our test demo what that looks exactly like. And so it'll just show you for an example what it's going to look like. for Ventura. One second.
Hey everybody, well Jason is doing that. I just wanted to plant something in your head. We are going to be visited this afternoon by our GIS specialist, Roger Adams from IT. So if you have questions about GIS, feel free to shoot those at me via the chat or via email, and I'll send those to Roger ahead of time, just to let you know.
Sorry for the delay here, Kurt, and everyone else here at Ventura.
No problem. So while you're doing that, I just wanted to point out is hopefully everybody is clear about the distinction between the desktop version of EnerGov and the enterprise version of EnerGov. Is there anybody that's not to whom that's not clear? Don't feel bad if that's the case. I'm raising my hand. All right, good. I just wanted to make sure everybody's clear. So the EnerGov version, the enterprise version, lives on a server in our system, and so that's what we're seeing right now in the access. So as distinct from the desktop version.
Kurt, this is Joe. Can I ask the purpose of today's training? It's titled, I think, user acceptance testing. So is that after this week's training, are we essentially going to be asked to either approve or validate or not validate certain functionality? And that's part of the purpose of this training, to see how it's actually built for the city of Ventura right now and what we're going to get.
Yes and no, and I'm going to take a stab at answering this. Jason will keep me honest. So, as you know, Joe, there's the build and validate phase, which we're just finishing, which is followed by the test and training phase. So this training actually marks the very start of the test and train phase. What that means is that Tyler is preparing us to be able to actually use the enterprise EnerGov system in such a way that we would basically using it in production. So this is they're preparing us to actually use the software to say, yes, we're ready to go into production. Now, you and I would probably think that we probably could have used some of this training a couple of months back when we started the build and validate stage, because we were kind of poking around. We weren't sure what we were looking for. But really, this is getting us ready to test and test the system to make sure it's ready for production. And specifically the people that will be doing the testing. The fact that we've now got 34 people in the room is a bonus, because this is helping those people come up to speed, because they will all have to get here too. Jason, have I said it right?
Yes, you are correct about that. And so you will be going in here and testing things out and going, hey, does my evaluation or does this calculator even work to add square footage in here? So you'll be trying to do everything you normally would be doing to use the system. So what you use in desktop, what you want to use it in enterprise. So if you're going to use it mostly for reviews, you'll be using the functionality of the review function. If you're creating reports, if you're intaking information, you'll be doing that as well, making sure everything looks like it should from what you've been seeing. Making sure there's not any loose ends or things aren't working properly. If you hit the GIS information, certain things won't show up, or if you are if you're using the time tracker and let's adding that information in here, making sure if you're a user who reviews building and safety, and then as well as planning and wastewater, making sure you are available to able to mark things up on those reviews, and not, every other review. You can't do Parks and Rec or something else like that.
Okay, is this set up with our custom fields? Is it set up with our custom fields right now? And my second question is, for things that affect multiple departments, at some point you have some time scheduled in this morning for us to ask questions on things after you cover everything. If we don't see something and it affects multiple departments, and we do that this morning.
Yes,
later
yes.
on.
I mean, what were you thinking right now, actually?
Linking a building permit with or linking a fire permit to a building permit, to a related building permit. It's something we couldn't figure out. We were trying to do it. We weren't able to yet when we tried.
Okay, well, I didn't know that's the functionality you wanted. We can do that. As I should
wait, I don't want to take up the time. I mean, we have a whole group of people here, and if you want to wait until the end, we'll save our questions and fire,
okay.
They get through what you want to get through, for the whole team.
I mean, I was trying to go through as much as I possibly could with this. It's a little bit difficult since I can't see how everyone else is logging in and seeing where their problems are. I know with what's going on with everyone not being able to log into the VPN from their home, but that's what I wanted to really cover. And I'm just going to show this. I can't get that email to transfer to let me into that CSS for my Tyler site, so let me just show you what you'll be able to do, though.
And while he does that, just everybody, if you have a question, don't hesitate to either put it in the comments or send me an email, and I will collect those and share those with Jason as well. But thank you, Joe, for bringing that up. I hope that explanation of the distinction between what this training is for helps. And thank you also for stepping forward with your particular questions that you want answered. We'll make sure we find time for that.
So I know, I forget who asked the question. I apologize. If you're going to add, these are all the permits that were just created just in our test demo site. And so, right here, you have an electrical residential permit. You could easily just apply for this. Of course, it's not making me do it. But so what it will do is, so this is a fee estimator. So right here, I want to do, let's say, electrical residential in here. These are some of the things you would do for this. Let's say it was, 2,300 square footage. The valuation for it is, $8,000 for this permit. And the application date is, 3/30. You put this information on here, then you have all the custom fields that would be in the back office would be transferring over here. And so, number of temporary power poles that would be needed, different power grids, and then as well as, property attributes, anything that you would see in the back office could be replicated over here to add for that information. And so let's say I needed 5 temporary power poles, more number of circuits, and these are just arbitrary numbers for the moment. I would just hit next. And then this would give me a fee estimator and figure out how much everything would cost. Now, these fees aren't, accurate to any, municipality, but this is just what you could show to your clients if they were trying to figure out before they applied for the permit. They would figure out how much, they would need to charge a client, or, how much they would need to do everything else for that job. And so after looking at these, the estimated fees, and then you could hit apply, and then from there you would start going through the process. I'll show that in the Bluebeam setup, and that's why I can't get in currently, and it's not allowing my login information for some reason, and so I do apologize for that. But that's about what I thought about covering. I was hoping, people would be able to see multiple different things for on their own computer. But you can also have, I just want to show you, you can also have inspections. You can also issue multiple trade permits. For, this one I have here, electrical permit, but mechanical, PEM, permit and the plumbing one as well. And then, these are all the different inspections. And I'll go more over this with the IG inspect portion I have for Thursday. That way I'll just be talking to inspection people and we can just discuss all that as well. But are there any other questions besides what Joe had before I dig into that?
And would this be, we were going to take a break around 10:30. Would this be a good time to take that break maybe? And then let people, think if they have any additional questions, and then we can come back and dive into Joe's?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. It's a little early, but I think it's good timing between, kind of a nice segue there. What about coming back at 10:30? Would that be all right? I can leave the chat session open. People can go away and then come back and we can resume at that time.
That sounds good to me.
All right, everybody. So let's go ahead and stop for now, but I'm not stopping the chat. I'm going to stop the recording though, and then we'll resume back here at 10:30. We'll, if you have questions or concerns, or anything that you want to see, this is a good time to bring that up. I have a couple of chat questions that I've got over here that I'm researching as well. I'm going to use this time to get that information back to the people in the chat as well. So otherwise, we'll see you all back, and there's 33 of you. Wow, we'll hope to see you all back at 10:30. Thank you. And we're recording. Hey everybody, welcome back, and thanks for attending the first half of the morning so far with Jason. I wanted to say something that I know might be on Jason's mind, and I wanted to share with all of you. Normally, Jason does this live with the group, and so if things hadn't happened the way they happened with the coronavirus, COVID-19, we would all be sitting in the IT training room right now, getting real familiar with one another, and Jason would be standing there right in front of us. Now, an advantage to that type of scenario is that we would all be on our computers and able to access EnerGov and follow along with what Jason is doing here. Now, we don't have that capability right now because we all know why. So what I wanted to do is, so Jason's kind of at a disadvantage because this is more of a participatory thing and we can't really do that. So I'm going to invite anybody on Jason's behalf to kind of take a chance to virtually take control. If you see Jason doing something, and maybe you want to have a question about how that works or dig a little deeper. Jason, I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds to say, please just go ahead and speak up and do so, because this is precisely what we want to do. Is that right, Jason?
That is correct. And you are correct about what we normally would be doing, face to face, or even if it was virtually, if everyone was able to be in the same room, I could go around and, figure out what problems were with each person's, system, and, see if there's any issues with them logging in or making any attempts to build things or not build things, with restrictions or not restrictions. So moving forward, even after this week, as everything's progressed, people need to be in this testing, hopefully every day, just to familiarize with the system, but not also, making sure they have all full functionality and something isn't missed as we progress further into this, getting closer to the go live date.
Right.
Are you monitoring the chat also, Jason, as we're going through? Because there's a couple questions in there now. Would that be a good way for us to participate? And are you?
Yes, I actually lost a couple of them. Can you read off any of the questions that I've missed?
One of the questions was about HTML5, which was, I think I just talked to Jason Kim during our break, and he said that's a fluid situation, given Tyler's priorities, that we hope to have that HTML5 in place by the time we go live, but that may not be the case. Do you have anything to add to that, Jason?
Yes, well, HTML5, we have part of it running and then part of it is not running. So like currently in the 2019 version, so like this is the version right here, 2019.1.2, that's what the system we have now in place for Ventura. You cannot process any fees in HTML5. And that will be some of those things will be addressed. I think fees will be addressed and invoicing will be addressed in the 2020 version. But creating a plan and going through Bluebeam and doing e-reviews and accessing everything else from that point of view, you can do in HTML5. Like there is some limitations to it, and there's some things still missing, but everything will be added at a certain time point. And we will be updating people's versions as it goes along as well to keep their HTML5 the most recent as possible.
All right.
Any other questions?
There's
a couple more in the chat. There's one about, can you show, someone said, can you show us how to add plan review corrections? That was one of them, and there's a couple others.
Okay, so, all right. Oh yeah, so I see one question, and I'll get to the corrections one as well beforehand. When does the 2020 version get implemented? The 2020 version will be released some point in between the period of June and July of this year, and hopefully that's not anything that's going to be taken back with the with the coronavirus and everything else. But as far as I know, that's when we're looking forward to implementing it and allowing multiple different municipalities to get that update and upgrade. Okay, we review the overview of the menu on the left. Oh, okay. All right. Just a quick thing for Derek. Derek, are you mentioning this menu right here where it says plan details, additional info, linked records, workflow, associated tasks, conditions, and bonds? Is that what you're talking about, Derek?
Yeah, this is my first time seeing it, so like just a real quick overview of the beginning of the system and then the overall menu layout.
Okay, so yeah, the overall menu layout here. So let me just start with something. So here it's the plan type, and it'll be similar for the permit type as well. You choose what permit type, and in here we have multiple different permits. Above ground storage tank, building commercial permit, building residential permit, OTC, PLCK, and then the plan checks as well. And then you have the sign permit, sign plan check, CFC permits. So those are all the permit types, and then each one will have their own work class. So it's their own little subsection of that permit type. And these are all everything that will be seen in the permit details. Then there's also the permit status. These are the statuses that I was given. I can add more. Currently we have approved, complete, denied, expired. As you can see here, void, stop work order. And then this is the description field. This is a memo box right here. You can add anything to this, and this can be associated to this permit or plan for that matter. Same setup. The district, it was decided early in the project that district wouldn't be used for Ventura, so it was decided to use just one, like a standalone district, and we just have it as it just bleeds right over to Ventura, so it automatically gets assigned to Ventura once it happens. And then this assign to function, I know I talked about it with planning, and they were thinking of having a person get assigned to all their different permits or plans, and then reassign it to whoever else they wanted to do it. I think that's what the plan was at one point. I think it's put on hold of assigning that person currently, where I think they're waiting on a person to elect for that. But in here you can, let's say, assign it to Kevin Cook or Bernadette, and that user would be in control of that permit. That would be underneath their review. They would be the review coordinator for that. They'd be in charge of that permit. In here you put the square footage, the valuation, and both these can be calculated. This can be calculated based on valuations of the different building occupancies and their evaluation types as well, including the square footage with different factors. That can all be done as well, or you can just enter it in manually without that if you already know the valuation for it. If you were to have an issued status, so I do issued, the issue date automatically pre-populates and it puts an expiration date on it. So for this permit, it's set up for 360 days. This might be wrong. And then every single inspection date that happens will have that entered date will populate as well. And then once the permit gets completely final, this is the final date and that will be populated. On here as well, you have the parcels, the addresses, the zones. I'll talk later about the zones later, but the zoning is where things for the GIS should populate from. But due to the fact of the GIS data, we couldn't get it populating there without doing, I think, like close to 1,200 translations for each zone. That was the main difficulty to that. These are the contacts, and you can add multiple contacts on here. You need a billing contact no matter what happens. You need one moving forward. So when you have, so the billing contact automatically gets, you need to see who's going to be charged for this, or if there's any fees, outstanding fees, that needs to be a person who's going to be in charge of that permit. Notes, that can be just text, and it says created date and who was done by. Activities, these are ways of documenting if you're going to do like a phone call with the with the user. I can show you in planning because we have a couple set up. So there's an email, in-person meeting, if a mailing thing was listed, other activity, and then you can add in additional comments to this or activity names. The activity number will get generated from this, and so you'll hold additional information to that. And then you have fees, and you can add, these fees are dependent on additional info as well as the plan type, but you can also add manual fees as well. So if you want to add any one of these additional fees on here, and these are all different types of plans. So this is the idea for this PO project, was to assign multiple different plans. So if you want to add sign variants on here, that would get added as well. You could also add holds to the account. You can do a plan review hold, and this can stop once I hit save. This can stop all action on this, so nothing can happen until this has been lifted. And then review team. So adding a review team is very similar to what this is. Second. So the review team is whoever is in charge of starting the review. So this the assigned to person was Sergio, which it wouldn't be for planning, but if Sergio, if you want to add multiple different departments on here, you could add, these people, they would be in charge of this plan as well as Sergio's to start the review process and to initiate it. Inspection cases. This is different than your normal inspection. This is like a if you're going to do a occupancy or a fire inspection to make sure, check how many people are allowed in a building at a given time period. That's what your inspection cases would be. And you can set those up, and those would just be like a yearly marker. Like every year this happens and the next date it happens, and you could start your case type that way if that was needed to happen. Currently there are no inspection cases created for that. We can talk in the future about that. And then impact units, and this is the impact module is set up like a environmental impact, and so how it's set up currently, people different states use it differently. I know for one client in Virginia, they use it as living close to a certain body of water. There was a certain amount of impact of houses being developed on a certain street or close to a certain ocean or bay or river, that they would have to pay into a impact fee, and until all that impact fee was paid off, people had to continually, whatever they were paying, like their valuation was dependent on how much they had to pay for that. And certain businesses could be affected by the impact units, but this is just a different module. It gets very in depth with this one. What things you can do with it. That is not set up for us as well, but that's all the information on the plan details screen. You can also, from this as well, you can also create a task, capture signatures, email what you see on the screen, as well as print what's available on here. And then this is the geo rules button. So if your geo rules didn't capture everything the first time, you could run it like this in Silverlight, and you just hit that button and it would rerun your geo rules, which is everything that would be running based on your address and parcel. On the left-hand side, additional info. This is all custom fields. So these are all the things that we can add and subtract. And so we have multi-selects here. We have whole numbers as well as decimals. Information areas over here. So like residential units. If you put that's allowed. I don't see value for residential units is not valid. It needs a whole number. So it needs to be, a whole number like that for it to intake that. It's just a little key information there. And then you have, drop downs as well over here. Linked records. This is everything that's linked to this permit or plan. And so you want to have licenses linked to it, as well as, impact inspection cases, professional licenses, code cases, plans and permits. The workflow is the business process. So what the process is for intaking and starting the plan. So the first part of this plan, for planning, for this planning project, they link all planning cases to this project, and then they start the 30-day review, and they have the application review, they have the DAC cover sheet or DAC conditions and comments. Either one of those can be started at any time. And this is just another review. And so each one of these assigned users will have different assigned reviews to them. And then also for the 30-day review for planning, they have, a completeness letter sent. And so, when they started this is information they'll be tracking for reports, as well as, history of the plan. And so this is just the review process, or it's the review process as well as what everything needs to take place to move ahead and make sure the project is complete and closed. And so this would be the business process for planning, and each one has their own different business process. So like for this, it's the planning coastal development permit. Since it's linked to the project, it doesn't have any workflow. It just, once this happens, you would switch, to it being issued once it went through, and once this was issued and final, that would be issued as well. So, and then you have the e-reviews project details. So this is what e-reviews used to look like in the Silverlight version, and these are different file categories. So this is what the different documentation that would be needed to be, you could add different categories to how the e-reviews is supposed to be intake. So let's say for certain plans, they need a landscape plan and a mechanical plan before they can even do anything. That's what the people over here in the DAC conditions or the DAC cover sheet will be reviewing, would be those review items. That's the information they'd be reviewing. Associated tasks. This is just a generic thing. You can add information in here. It's not used very often. It's mostly for miscellaneous tasks involving the project. You could, moving forward, use that, but it's not widely used amongst EnerGov users and municipalities, Conditions, these are information that can be added to the case. So for temporary sign banner, this is a category I set up. And we talked about this earlier, but you could add multiple different conditions that would need to be satisfied to, finalize this plan. So, and then the scope over here, you would assign this to either the case, which is, this is the plan case, the project, which would be located in here. So you'd have to search for that. And anything associated with this project would have these conditions if they select that scope. And then property would be anything associated with this address or parcel would have that conditions applied to them. And so for any other, plans or permits, this condition would still populate on those ones that are open. Bond information, you can add multiple different bond types, faithful performance bond, you can do active, you can select the principal, the surety, or the obligee. And then you could, input how much money was in there for that bond as well. And so they could potentially even, pay for, what their plans are for this. Since if, you guys require a $50,000 bond before you're setting up a major plan for, multiple commercial and residential areas, if in a big, parcel area, they could have a bond. So it would affect, if they were, they would go negligent on it. Documents. This is a way to run reports or documents on the plan. So this is the ones that are standard. These aren't the ones you guys will be moving forward. The GIS information. This is where the spatial collections would be used. It's currently not set up. We need, for spatial collections to be added to EnerGov, we need 3 types of GIS layers, and it's spatial collections, point, polygon, and line. And you would be able to draw, and it would just be an additional layer attached to the map that you could, add. So if you're putting a plan in, you could draw around a certain area, that's where you guys are building things and, or other information. And then the history tab. This is anything that was done to the plan or the permit or any information that's done. So there's a history tab, I believe, on almost everything in EnerGov. So the invoice has a history tab, when it was added, as well as, so it just keeps everyone honest when they're in there as a user of what's actually going on and done, completed. So if things were done, if they're adding things, so, the balance due grew, when I added those fees over here earlier at 9:13 a.m. That's how it works. All right, let me get to the
Jason?
manage. Yes.
So I just wanted to real quick check with Derek. He was asking about a review of the overall menu items. Derek, did that give you what you needed, or were you looking to go back a step to the main screen?
Nope, that was excellent. Thank you very much.
Very good. And there are other questions there that maybe we can pick those up, try to knock those off at the end if we have some time. But again, everyone, I'd like to encourage you to don't hesitate to speak up. Jason, hope it's all right. Don't hesitate to interrupt Jason if you have a question that's topical for that particular moment to make sure it gets addressed. I'll try to keep a closer eye on the comments as well. And there was a comment from Mark about the bond doc. If you have a link for that, Jason, if you could provide that in the comments later, that'd be great.
The bond doc? What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, I just didn't see that one.
Comment from Mark Wild. Can you link the bond doc?
Yeah, so Jason, my question there is, you had all of the nice fields in which you could enter the data from the bond document, but my question was if you could click on a link to the PDF of the bond.
Oh, of the bond. Oh, no, there is no PDF to the bond from this page. If you were going to require, let's say if you were going to require a bond for, let's say, a grading permit, you could require that, that information be, added to the case, and that way you could upload it through here through an attachment and add it as an attachment on here. And that way you could look, that way it would be stored to the, let's say, for example, this was a grading permit and that you have a grading bond, you could see, the bond information to that. Also, there is another way. I know the city and the state also see how bonds are also kept also on their state website for contractors. And their validations, it sees available bonds. Let me show you.
Mark, the bonds are currently scanned and attached to the permits.
Okay. I think I just lost internet for a second. Sorry, everyone.
Well, while you're doing that, Annmarie, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Annmarie, sorry I didn't notice your questions from the AM session, early AM session. If you have any of those outstanding questions that you still need to have answered, we can do that now if you like, if Jason's all right, or find time.
I saw one of the questions has to do with Resolve, about being able to add and save incorrect addresses that are not in Ventura, correct?
Correct.
Yes, I believe Jamie was working on that. He said it was a quick fix. I don't know if he got to it. I apologize. If he didn't, I can check later on today before our afternoon session to make sure that's in there before I give you an okay on that. I don't believe it has been. If I'm being 100% honest.
Okay. All right. So if I can get an update during my session, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
And while Jason wraps that up, I'm going to do a plug for Annmarie's session. So everybody, the afternoon lineup includes a slight change. From 2:45 to 5, we're going to have the session with the building and safety. So if you're part of that group, please come along. We were going to have the GIS from 1 to 2:30, but with the interest in IG and spec, we're going to have a 1 to 1:30. We'll talk about the IG and spec piece, and then we're going to begin with GIS at 1:30. Slight change.
Okay. So this is the information that would happen if you were certifying your contractor information, and it shows bond info. I know that's not usually up to date since it's done with the state, but this also shows, the business name, what's associated with it. I just wanted to show everyone what it looked like. It shows the reissue date, expiration date, and it says the status is currently expired. The general building contractor is the classification for that, and then it shows the current bond info as well, the bond number, effective date, and the insurance company, and then as well as the work comp info as well. Now, with that information in there, that can't be stored within EnerGov, even though it's within this page, it can't be stored there. So we have this currently for the current workers info, and we'll be adding in the bond information in here as well to make sure it has everything. So it has the exempt description, insurance company policy number, effective date for workers comp, and then if you wanted bond information tied to this contact, we could do that as well. But all right, I'm going to go back to where do people write their comments and corrections? So for most of the people who will be doing the review process, they'll be doing things in the permit manage my reviews or the plan manage my reviews. And just for an example, I'm just going to open up the plan manage my reviews. For me, I have 0 things attached to Ben Bergman, but let's check the administration system. Let's see what's added to this. So these are all the plans that are for review that you know, I would have to make updates to and look at. So for this, you could see here and see, let's open this case up. And so you could see the plan details screen. You could, from here, you could click to the documents and then look at the attachments of what that document is. And then you could also write your comments in here. And then anything else, information that would be needed as well. You could write in corrections, recommendations, and that conditions we talked about earlier could also be added in here as well. If you're adding conditions to certain ones that, you know, it's okay to move forward with, but you can move on later on without it. But so you can add in recommendations, and recommendations, you know, you could just add in, you know, but all this information so can be added in here, and so you can add corrections, and corrections can have a corrections library. So currently it's just set up as general correction, but we could have corrections if you wanted to have, so currently it just says used for general corrections. That can just be deleted out and you can write whatever you wanted. But for the category of general correction, you could have, you know, building and safety, you could have, you know, any category you would like to for that, just so you could separate out different corrections and pre-populated corrections as well. And so if it's not resolved, you would normally mark, you know, something, you know, that's, you know, needs to be resubmitted or, you know, doesn't qualify for certain things. And so you would, you know, you could hit save to that, as well as, you know, and then this has markup. This information this will be seen later on in the Bluebeam. This has markup isn't, it doesn't work in the Silverlight. It goes back and forth, but it's mostly for Bluebeam, the markups, how that works. Does that add, I know there's gonna be a bunch of questions and reviews, so please, by all means, people ask about this.
Jason, this is Lisa. I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Yes. So when you're logging in as an end user and you really just do the reviews and that's it, like you're not taking in cases, isn't there a shortcut that you can just like add it to your favorites so it automatically pulls up and you don't have to search? Could you demonstrate that, everyone?
Yes, we have so we have your favorites right here, and so you can add certain favorites in here. So hold on 1 second. So these are the favorites currently set up in there. Hold on 1 second. See, if I just would hit that, it would just go straight to planning. And to add more, let's go to manage my plan. I know you could do it before in here. Lisa, can I get back to you on that, and I can show everyone else that favorite option? But yes, you can make a favorites. I apologize for not being able to do it correctly right now.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions about that? So I know I was able to switch in between different users. Majority of people who will be looking at this as different reviewers will not be able to switch their user. They'll be locked in on their person and their person only, unless they have certain qualifications. And that will be done through the user setup. So when they look in here, they will only see, their name as the user, and they'll only see what the due date is for all these reviews and what statuses they have and what work they have left to do.
Could I, maybe to help clarify things for everyone who's watching, make a distinction? EnerGov has the two platforms of plan and permit.
Yes.
And for everyone's edification, we will only be using the plan module to work on planning permits. So things that are in entitlement. So those projects that come in as planning applications and then are routed and reviewed through the DAC team, that will be all handled through the plan module. The permit module will be for all building permits and grading permits and things of that nature, just to make that distinction for everyone. So you see Jason toggling between the two modules. Just for all the end users, you will live in plan when you're doing planning permits, entitlement review, and you will live in permits when you're doing building permits, grading permits, and inspections and things of that nature.
That is correct. I appreciate that.
Hope that helps clarify things.
Is there any other questions involving reviews? I know, this is a big thing of, making sure, plans get, documented correctly and, comments and corrections get, routed to different people.
Hi, Jason, it's Merritt.
Hey, Merritt, how are you?
Hi, I have a question. So since fire and building, we're using the permit module. How can you show us in the permit module where our plan checkers add their corrections?
It's the same thing. It's called
It's the same? Okay.
It's called permit manage my reviews instead of it being so there's two ones. It's plan manage my reviews for all the planning ones, and then the other one is called permit manage my reviews. And so for this, I just checked right now. This is what Chandra has dedicated to him right now. These are the three ones he has. It looks like I might have made one approved, but so you just have to click right here on that little plus sign, and then you would add in your corrections if need be, add recommendations and add conditions, and these will all be once that gets done. So let's say for this one here, for building review, plan check, public works, waste management, for this PEM, whenever it goes back, whenever that information gets completed, let me just bring up a permit. It'll show up in the workflow that it was completed by Chandra at a certain date with the status of their choosing. So. Oh, that's not the one I wanted to do. Sorry. So when this gets completed, when they look through this and go through the permit manage my reviews, and they make the status requires resubmit, that would show up right here for that particular case. And so they don't have to go into the permit details screen or this permit. They just do have to do their work in the permit manage my reviews, and that would just be completed. And then they could also add their time entries in here as well.
Okay, great.
And so they can say how long they took and make their time type as well, and at the billable rate. So that can all be added just from this screen entirely. So they don't even have to go into and look into this screen. They don't ever have to go in here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions that I missed? I apologize.
Annmarie, you had a couple of other questions. Were there any others that you wanted to address at this time?
I think my main one was just the addressing issue, and Jason's answered that. And then the other items I can go over during my training at 2:45 because they're specific to building and safety.
All right. And there was also a question from Alex about, he said he's new to the group and he wondered about a demo on how to add corrections.
Yeah, I just showed right here. You just hit add corrections and you just, so if you just had a general corrections, you could just hit this and then you would go in here and write your comments on what need to be corrected at that given time period. This looks different than what will be seen in the Bluebeam, and me and Kurt will work through what time we can show that. I think you said yes tomorrow. I think we were talking about tomorrow, Kurt, or wrong about that, showing Bluebeam.
The Bluebeam, well, hopefully, yes. Well, we haven't picked the time yet. So is that, maybe we could use that time. I think I got myself confused earlier with the IG Inspect and the Bluebeam. Was the Bluebeam the piece that you said you might be able to put together between lunch and after lunch?
I mean, you said you wanted to show the IG Inspect. I can show the IG Inspect today. It just, there's a little bit more things with the IG Inspect. I think more than a half hour is needed for the IG Inspect.
Because we do have the IG Inspect on Thursday, the slot for that. And yes. But I wanted to make use of the fact that we've still got almost 30 people in the room, and there seems to be broad interest in the IG Inspect. Mm-hmm. And make use of the fact that we have so many people here. So I wonder what's the best use of time. Should we try to move the IG Inspect piece over here and maybe use the Thursday for the Bluebeam? This kind of question is for the general audience. Would people like to see IG Inspect? You may not be able to have the Bluebeam piece ready for this afternoon, but does that work for everybody if we move the IG Inspect to today, given that we have so many people here today, and maybe use Thursday's slot for Bluebeam? Any objections? Does that work for you, Jason?
That works for me.
Oh, but Annmarie, you do have one person that can't attend the Thursday, or being until Thursday, huh? For the IG Inspect. Is that
so? Yes. So I don't. We just because we're limited as far as inspections and stuff. It's too late for me to have him try to join today, last minute. I did get the approvals for him to join on Thursday, and so I would really hope, since he is an inspector, that we can include him or have something on Thursday.
I have an idea. Why don't we keep the IG Inspect on Thursday and maybe use one of the spillover sessions? Like, for example, Thursday, our spillover begins at 3:30. Use that for Bluebeam.
Okay, that's fine.
Would that keep everything straight for you, Annmarie?
That would be great.
Great. Sure. Let's do that then. Thank you for being flexible.
Thanks, Kurt.
Sure.
Joe, I know you brought it up earlier about having links between fire permits and building permits, correct?
Yeah, we want to see how that'll work. We tried it and we weren't able to do it yet.
That is because I currently don't have it set up, and so the way to do it, you would have to do it from the workflow detail screen, kind of similar how planning does it, how they link things. And it'll just be a workflow actions, saying it's linking things, and so you would, add action, and we could pick, we can have all fire, all the fire permits in here, and so let's say, for example, this was, this was the fire permit, by hitting OK to that and then hitting create.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a second. Just save this. By hitting create, it would populate where that is, and so you can search for that one that's that one that's already been created, or if you needed a brand new permit, you could create a new fire permit from that.
Okay.
And then and once you hit save, it will be linked within the records. It'll what it's linked to. So they're both permits. They'd both be linked on this permit number. Each one would have each other.
Okay, so that then one of the functionality requirements we have in the contract is that the permit not close out until the linked permits are also finalized. So
Okay.
is that set up right now, or do you still need to work on that before we test that?
I would need to test that. But I'll make that down as a note for an action to make sure that that has that functionality. I appreciate that.
So can I interject on this one too? So just so I'm understanding, Joe, if we have a building permit, you want the ability and functionality that if you have an open permit related to it, you don't want us to be able to final it?
Yeah, we've had a couple just so that accidentally buildings don't get signed off for occupancy that have a linked sprinkler system permit. So if they haven't installed a sprinkler system in a building that requires it and that's documented on the building plan, then they won't be able to, or the permit won't close out until we sign off on the sprinkler permit.
Joe, this is Neda. I would agree with that. I've seen that happen in past cases in my other jurisdictions. So it would be, if we can have a functionality that links it and that we don't issue a building permit unless the fire alarm sprinkler system is done, that would be great. Jason, is there an ability to do that?
There is an ability. I would assume it's got to be an automation that would go in there and check it to make sure it's everything is qualified. You know, all the sub permits are completed before the main permit is completed.
Could there be a warning that pops up or something of that nature?
Not a warning, but I do have a different idea, and it would be in the workflow for it to happen. And please let me know what you think. With each one of these, tasks being completed, so let me refresh this. So in here, it's, the plan status is submitted. We can have a linked, and I'll bring up a permit just for an example. We can have, so like right here as an example, this sub permit, we can have it so this sub permit does not get completed until you can final something. So it would have to turn green before you could even final something. So you could still do all your inspections, and then you would have this one just sitting right below it. Like you do 5 permits.
Joe and Annmarie, would that work?
I think it would work if on the IG inspect, which we'll see soon, if it works there, then it works, because then when we enter our final in the field, it's not dependent on there being a hard copy job card that someone has to show building. That you would see our approval immediately, and it would release it, so no one has to wait till the end of the day to see that sub permit was finalized, which has been a problem in other jurisdictions where they don't have field functionality, but the permits are linked.
This is Annmarie. Oops, sorry. I also think that can work, and it'll probably help us too without closing our main permits out when we have sub permits pending still too. So I think that would be a good function.
Okay.
Hi,
Yeah,
one question.
Sorry, this is Heidi. And do you know if there's going to be any anything in there that will identify when a building is on a TCO?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know we currently have a status that we enter for TCO, but that's just something we added after the fact. But that's a good question for Jason.
What does TCO stand for?
A temporary certificate of occupancy.
Oh, okay. So we can add in temporary certificate of occupancy. We can add those in there. We don't have those set up currently, but we can add those in there. We would just need to know exactly where you would want those in there for the permits. We're in the workflow. What part of the business process.
So Jason, I was kind of envisioning maybe working like this in that workflow with the sub permits, because that would be like a step along the way, and if we issued one, then everybody would be aware of it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Are there other suggestions with other jurisdictions, how they've handled that?
So for other jurisdictions, they have a label on their workflow. So similar to what it it says here, it says sub permit. It would just be certificates, and it's at the bottom for some of them, and they have the ability. It has no priority over anything. So when they start, they hit and just say complete. Like we got the temporary certificate of occupancy. So they hit complete and hit save, and so that automatically turns that green. And then whenever they want to do, certificate of occupancy, that's the last step, and then they would hit that. It's not dependent on anything. That can happen at any point in time. They just choose when they want to have that, certificate of occupancy fire.
Heidi, and fire, do you think that'll work for you guys? I mean, I think that can work for building and safety.
I think so, yes. That's important to us to know and have that flagged. And I think we currently put fire conditions on those TCOs also. So as long as there's a functionality in there.
Yeah, we too put conditions on TCO. So how would we add conditions to that? Is there a way, Jason?
Just conditions to the TCO.
I was going to ask the same thing, Annmarie.
I mean, when you say conditions, how do these conditions work currently for you in the system now?
Do you want to answer that?
So currently we don't have it in the system. Desktop's not set up for that. So we have a Word document, and those conditions are typed onto that Word document.
Okay.
But if we can get that functionality in this version and where everyone could see that and they didn't necessarily have to have that Word document, that would be ideal.
So we can add the conditions, and this is one of those things we can add it to conditions here, and we could create a category called, whatever, let's say for that, it's certificate of occupancy conditions or temporary certificate of occupancy conditions. And that way it gets attached to the case. So they have to be satisfied, like those conditions have to be satisfied before you can finalize the permit.
That can work for us, building and safety.
Yeah, is there any way to flag to get an alert that there's a TCO so that we can put our fire conditions to building and safety? We currently do that now via email typically. And so building will have their conditions and fire will have ours, and we merge them into, a single document. But if that's something that can happen within the software here.
There really isn't anything to flag it unless someone would manually change the permit status to, let's say, TCO issued as the permit status, and someone had to manually do that.
And Heidi, that's what we do now. We manually change that status to TCO.
Okay. So I guess then we would just have to communicate by email that a building's on TCO when we're involved anyway, instead of getting some type of alert, since that's not a capability. So,
I mean, you could also, how often do you check for, so you get your emails and you put your conditions in there for your TCOs. Would it be helpful to, since this permit status is in there, you could search for it every day. It's probably not the greatest way to go about it, but that's one way to do it without, sending emails back and forth to each other. But I didn't know if you'd want to do that. It's
we can give that some further thought and work with building and maybe touch base later this week on possible solution to that.
Agreed.
Okay.
Jason, can you show us one other thing as that there's some, it's important for building and fire to understand how it works. When someone does when we have an architectural plan review and it's routed over to fire, we do our review and we determine that the building either needs a fire alarm system, a sprinkler system, or some other related fire protection system for that building and that permit.
Okay.
Normally we have deferred submittals for those, and we put in the questionnaire the process of adding a deferred submittal and showing it on the workflow, so that once we indicate on the workflow for a building permit that, let's say, a fire alarm system is required, it will show in there, so the building inspector knows that without looking at the plan. I mean, it's on a plan, but there's hundreds of notes on there. They can see, oh, fire is requiring them to submit and apply for a fire alarm or a sprinkler permit, so that they don't get past the rough stage of construction. It happens, it's accidental, and it's just to help out, you know, it helps fire, it helps building by seeing that in the workflow. So prior to signing off on a rough framing inspection, the building inspector would see, oh no, you still need to get your sprinkler or fire alarm permit in rough. Can you show us how that would work to add that in to the workflow so the inspector would see it? Which I know is IG inspect, but I just want to see on this end how that's done.
And so you would see that in the when you're in the inspecting process, they would need fire alarms. Is that what you're saying? Not in the review process?
Well, it would be in the review process, and it would end up in the workflow. So when we get the plan over at fire, we do our review of architectural plan, and we determine, oh, they need a fire alarm system in this building. Well, that typically has to be done either, you know, prior to sign off of rough framing and construction. So we wanted it, and in the questionnaire we had it so that it's in the workflow for the process. So as we're adding our, we're processing the plans on our end once they're routed to us from building, and we make that determination on what's required for the building. We add it into the workflow, so anyone looking at the record can see, oh, fire is requiring them to do work on the fire alarm or sprinkler system for the building, just so there's an overall awareness, so they don't get too far in the process and then find out, oh, they need to get a sprinkler or fire alarm permit.
Yeah. Well, normally how EnerGov is set up, with the review, everyone would have to, you know, approve it before you'd even get into issuing the permit. And I know that, you know, that would, you know, that could stall some things with that review process. And that's what and you want to keep that, right? You want to make sure all reviews need to be completed before issuing the permit. I just want to make sure about that.
Yeah, but we want it to show in the workflow, once we determine that sprinklers or fire alarm is required as part of that, you know, that they're going to have to submit a deferred submittal. Instead of just expecting the inspectors to rely on, you know, one of 100 notes that are in a building plan, because we do have them put on there, there would be in the workflow in here, it would show that fire is requiring the developer to get a sub permit, like for fire protection on this building. So that way everyone is aware from either fire or building. Without opening up the plans, you can see it in here in the workflow for that specific project.
Would a note be ideal for this? Adding a note and saying that?
Maybe not a note, but like over on the left there, where you have the workflow, where it would show like as a, like as not a sub permit being obtained yet, but a sub permit required.
Permit required. See, I can't. See, the only thing I could do is add actions over here, or I can't make anything required over here on this side. And that's why I was trying to figure out the best thing, since, you know, you would see that in the review. And so you wouldn't have to look through everything if you just made a note saying, hey, you know, they need this to, you know, move forward. But to have something over here on the left side, it adds, unless you could create, you know, add step, but it wouldn't make anything required. You could add a step and it's saying, you know, you can make a hidden step in here and, you know, add, you know, fire, you know, permits or, you know, and then that way it would show up. I don't know how the best way to show that though. I really don't. I'm gonna take a think on that one, Joe.
I think also, this is Heidi, I think also part of what Joe is referring to here is that to final a permit, our permits have to be met. So,
yes.
Okay.
No,
But you have to know a permit is required, and that has to show in the workflow. Otherwise, the building department can go out, they can do a rough inspection, and it would be easy to miss. And it has happened before that a building gets signed off for rough, and they were required to install a sprinkler system, and then 6 months later, it's time for a building final, and then the building inspector realizes, uh-oh, this building had to have fire sprinklers, and it's a little late in the process, and then it's trouble. I mean, it causes real problems at that point.
I understand.
This is Ann. This is Ann. What if it was a condition, Joe, that printed out on the permit that you guys added, and then it was printed out on the job card? Do you think that would be missed as much as a note on the plans?
Yes, as being a field inspector, and that happens pretty frequently, or regularly, I should say. And so that's what we're trying to get at, is some type of stop gap so that a permit isn't final, because then we're, ripping out drywall to put in the wiring for the alarm or whatever that looks like. So it's important to have that really at the forefront, and a sort of a workflow approved and finalized.
Hey, everybody.
We have some priority with that, so couldn't.
I just wanted to step in real quick. We have about 30 minutes remainder before we're going to be stopping this section of our training and breaking for lunch. I just wanted to check with Jason how we're doing on time. We do have a whole afternoon tomorrow to talk about fire. If we can defer some of this to them to make sure we make best advantage of the big audience that we have today. Jason, how you doing on time?
I'm good on time. I just, I don't know what else to go over. If there's something someone wants to go over for training, or or adding things into SharePoint, or different things needed there, since I know majority of people know how to use SharePoint.
I'm going to take the opportunity, because I am a newbie here and all this is very new to me in terms of EnerGov. I'm going to speak for the new person. Is there anything basic that everybody needs to know that we haven't covered yet, that the person that's out there that doesn't quite follow along but is maybe a little hesitant to raise their hand might be wondering about? And Jason, in your mind, is there anything that you normally cover that you haven't had a chance to cover yet from general perspective?
Not from the general perspective. I mean, most of the biggest problems are logging on, just making sure people log on. And I can't check that today, so that's it. Right.
Okay. Is there anybody out there that has something in the back of their mind from a general perspective? Don't be shy. This is the time to ask, that you'd like to ask Jason about. No? Okay. What we're about to do then, beginning this afternoon, is begin to take a deeper dive into EnerGov. So this whole morning session was really about the big picture. And we're going to be fragmenting off into smaller groups of building and safety this afternoon, and fire department after that tomorrow afternoon, and building safety tomorrow. So I guess we can go ahead and talk about whatever is most pertinent to the group in the remaining time we have, the last half hour we have. So I guess we can carry on as we were doing, unless there's nothing else.
Okay, Joe, what I was talking about was
the subject we were on after we see if anyone else has anything they want to cover. That'd be great if we circle back to what we were just talking about. I don't want to take up all the time.
Neda, was there anything in particular that you would like to make sure that everybody has an understanding of?
What might be helpful, and I'll just shoot this out to the DAC team to see if there's interest here. Does the DAC team want to go over kind of the DAC process? I know that, Jason, you touched on it briefly, but since we have a lot of the DAC players here, is there any interest from you guys to see what routing things through DAC would look like now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Jason, if we could do that, I think that would be helpful because that touches every department right now.
That's fine. So for this is just, so the plan type for the DAC process, as you were saying, the plan type is called Zero Planning Project, and it was made like that since it was the P0, but to get it to the top, it had to be a 0 up there. So, and it's got a standalone work class, so it's just, very simple. It's planning project right there. And I'm just going to add in my address.
So DAC team, this would be what the planners would be doing to get this, when the project comes in to get it ready for DAC. I'll jump in and point out when it turns to something you guys would be interfacing with. Planners, this would obviously be creating projects in EnerGov.
That is, thank you. And yes, and you would just add the contact here. I'm going to add Lisa again. I apologize, Lisa. And then just going to make that person the applicant, and then hit save. So when this gets done, the application date gets processed, the contact is added. There's 0 fees yet to hit the plan case or project. I know Lisa and Veronica and Elizabeth all talked about a process of adding in the description in here would be the project name instead of it being over here. Lisa, Veronica, and Elizabeth, either one of the three, can you guys please let me know if that's 100% positive what you guys were talking about in our meetings with reporting?
Right, this is Lisa here. We are going to come up with a standard. So I don't have it off the top of my head, but it may include address, the biggest project that there is. So if it's like, if the biggest project is a use permit, I would have that in the description, possibly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Veronica. And then maybe one other. I think the project number is not going in there because it's pulled from somewhere else.
Yes, so we have the project case number right here is on top, and this is, PROJ 00134 2020. That's what gets populated after I hit save. And then you have the additional info. So this is all the information that you would need to capture within that planning project. What exactly you're going to be doing within it. So you have all these questions, retail area, hotel area, final decision maker, project description, project location, and there's more information here, the APN. And then you also have the use permit data as well to make sure, it's alcohol, thrift store, tattoo, as well as, wireless tower types that can be added to this. Historical landmarks can also be added in here as well as affordable housing. And then this is the data archive as well for this. And this is, parking requirements, parking calculations. And, you'll see on here as well, you'll also have, type of use is, single family, you drop downs there for that. Now, once we get into this part, this is the workflow of this.
Sorry, Jason, can I interrupt? The data archive is really just what we're mapping our old data in, and we're not using that. Yeah, so that's just for purposes. Yeah, not for the planner to go in and add to. Thanks.
Okay, so in here, this is the workflow details. And so if you were to add...
Jason, if I could just jump in real quick. So DAC team, up until this point, that would be stuff that the planners would be inputting and getting that information and the project description in there for you and any pertinent information on the project. You can access and see all that information. So if you wanted to know more levels of details, you could go into that additional information and look at that once the planners have put it in. The project description will look just like basically what you see on the agendas now, that kind of level of information, and then you could go into here and dive deeper and finding out more information. We'll do our best to keep that really updated. And then I think, Jason, you're going into the workflow now. This would be when we come to DAC and bring the projects. This is what we would be marking down or keeping track of if you're going to be reviewing it, and keeping you informed of that. Thanks, Jason.
Yes, that's part of it, as well as, you know, within this project module, you'll have multiple different planning processes within here. And so this is where you would be adding it in there. So if you're adding a admin variance or animal raising permit or any one of these things you would be associating with this project, you could add multiple to this. So if you're, you know, making sure, you know, lot line adjustment as well as, you know, a minor change, you could do both at the same time. Or, you know,
Oh, you were
any one of those
adding the cases.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yes.
I
No, you're fine.
prematurely jumped in, DAC. Planners would still be doing this.
Yeah. So you would do this, and then let's say all three of these for that time period. So those get added in here. And then to make sure those even start, you'd have to hit create for all of those. And, you know, that's what we were doing earlier for sub permits. And so these are sort of sub plans of the original project. So, you know, these are children of this project. Let me just create just for one of them real quick. And so for all of these, all the information gets transferred over. For the future, there won't be any fees on these ones. I'll be taking that off for a lot of these. This was originally we were doing fees for each one of these. Instead, the planning department thought it would be useful to have just all fees being associated just to the project. And for that to happen, you'd have to do it manually. And so you'd have to figure out, you know, which ones you added. So, you know, for this one, Mills Act, you know, was the one. And so that gets added. And then I think, was, you know, there was one right
Jason,
below
if
Mills
you
Act. So,
could,
yes.
Jason, for the benefit of the entire group, and we could maybe go into this level of detail with the planners on Wednesday,
Okay.
but for the benefit of the DAC group, could we go to the workflow
Yes.
portion and then show them what that would look like once we've entered all this information when we are routing those? Thanks so much.
Right. No, you're fine. So here
It'd be helpful to see how to add fees also if we have time, because we want to see how that's done on our end. So once we receive a submittal over in Fire, how do we add a fee for our review time for anything, especially those that are kind of out of the ordinary and take a lot of time?
For planning applications, this would be planning entitlements, not building permits.
Right. Yeah. Just for anything that we review, planning that's routed to us for review.
Joe, my understanding is that we collect a lump sum for planning applications. We don't do any extra billable time that we pass on to applicants outside of that. But maybe we can have that combo offline.
Sure. Yeah, we have something in our fee schedule for it that we haven't been able to collect on. We've had in our fee schedule for some time. So yeah, we can talk offline.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Wasn't aware, Joe. Yeah, let's talk a little more about that.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, so I talked to Lisa and Elizabeth and Veronica about this. They're going to make this the DAC process. It starts with the 30-day review, and so for this, you know, they would have to, you know, you would hit create for the application review, and this would just be if you're writing in comments saying, you know, everything's there, just making sure everything's there to start the review process, and you could either start and these are the exact same things. I don't know why they're there like that. We can go deeper once, but you receive the submittal. And these are the item reviews that would be assigned for the plan for the DAC, and you could add additional item reviews as well. If they're, like Gold Coast Transit, EJ Harrison Trash Services, City of Ojai, or City of Oxnard can be added in here as well as review types. And then once you're in here, you could also, change the due dates and assign people in that, those two departments to look at those reviews. As well as you have the completeness letters.
Wait, could you just stay there for a second?
Yeah.
Can we go back to? So DAC, if I could just talk you through this. So when we come to a DAC meeting, once we have EnerGov going, and the planner presents the project for you, and then you indicate if you want to review it or not. This is the screen I would pull up just at the DAC meeting or virtually, whatever is happening at that time. And when you indicate that you want to review it and look at it, I would just change your status on here to take you from red to green, that you would be looking at it. It would automatically populate your assigned and due dates and give you 2 weeks. And you would come in once you're done with your review. And Jason, maybe you can hover over this. On completed date, you would put in there when you've completed your review, so that we know that you've done that, and you can even add comments and attach them here as well. So we would have within the project all of your reviews done and documented here.
That is correct.
Thanks for letting me talk through that.
Yeah, I apologize about that. But you could also do it in the Planage My Reviews as well. So if they don't even want to look at this screen, they could just populate it in here and see what they were assigned to as well, and see what due dates and everything else as well.
Yeah. So when we click it in that other screen, sorry, Jason, click it in that other screen, it'll show up on your personal workflow, which is what Jason just showed, of all the things you have under review, so that you have a running tab of everything you've selected that you want to review, and then those due dates. But this screen we would just be showing at the DAC meeting, and for project by project to take a poll from all of you who wants to look at it. I hope that's clear. If it's not, feel free to ask questions.
And there is also a way of documenting the DAC meeting as well. So, I mean, within this, you can, there's a way of the person who's in charge of this would, be the DAC meeting. You could attach the attendees, additional information, what's going on with, certain project cases. So this information could be also added to the workflow for that.
Is there a way to, so then you can track who's at meetings and how much time they're spending at DAC, for instance, by having those attendees in there?
There is a way to add in there, not track them, but there is a way of who goes to attends the meeting. So you can add contacts or add users, and adding users would be people in Ventura. So that's people who'd be using things in the back office. So, you could add, people who would be at that DAC meeting. Tom Martin was at this DAC meeting, and I would assume he was there from 4 to 6, but you can't make that assumption. But there's no way to track that unless I set up that time tracking thing as well in here, and someone would have to track that. Joe. But then there's also the completeness letter sent. And from what I understood from Veronica and Lisa, this happens with the 30 days of completing the DAC review. And if it doesn't, they would just add a new resubmitted date of the new review of the new plans being reviewed again. And every single time that they weren't able to complete it, there'd be an incomplete date in there for them until it became the deemed complete date. Within this, there's also, besides the DAC stuff, there's also the hearings involve city council, the administrative hearings, the design review committees. those all can get added to the case. And so, for this is the administrative hearing that can get created, and and you can change the location dates as well as the information that was there, as well as the attendees that were there for that. So the hearing body, the date posted, public hearing, project descriptions. Am I missing anything from the DAC stuff? I apologize if I am.
No, that's great, Jason. Thank you for walking through and then allowing me to jump in just to clarify things. So for DAC team, then you can know what hearings projects are going to and when they're scheduled for hearings, and what dates those are. So if you want to know that for projects, this will be also the platform when we collect DAC conditions and comments, and you see that kind of in blue, where you would be entering in your conditions that would then become the permits that go to those hearing bodies for approval. And then once they are approved, we would be attaching the final resolutions with those approved permits and the approved plans in here. So you could go in here at any time and retrieve those. So our hope is that this becomes your one-stop source for getting all of that information and giving us all of that information for planning projects. That's all I had to add.
No, that's
This
fine.
is excellent. So we'll have this is what we were hoping for as well in Fire, so we can see what's due from us. So we'll basically, anything that we need to review, it'll be like in a queue then, is that correct? We'll see what we need to review so we can make sure we're on time with all of our reviews.
And majority of them have the set date of 2 weeks from the original start date of it. And they, the dates can be amended, and pushed back or brought forward depending on the situation as well. So depending on the level of person involved. So for Chandra, he had things assigned to him on 10/2/2019, and they were due 10/24/2019. So depending on when they were assigned is when they were due. And then certain people would have the ability to push the dates back, as I was saying. People, whoever was the review coordinator of that plan case. Is there anything else that that I failed to mention about the DAC? I know we were trying to get this in right before everyone else was leaving.
Did any DAC members have any questions about any of that?
This is Lisa.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, just real quick. We have gone back and forth with how we want to show the comments or the conditions from the departments. Now, if you go to the DAC conditions comments, let's just say we're using that. Okay, so let's say environmental services, they want to add their comments. They're clicking on the comment bar to the right, correct? So if we are going this route, I just wanted to bring this up. I believe when we, if we do pull a report and we print it all out, this is something, it'll show exactly how it is. It's not terribly formatted, is that correct?
It's not terribly formatted, and I can show you, hold on, let me bring something up real quickly. So this is the standard report, and it's something that we've been working with to get, so the plan corrections report. And so right here it has, corrections. And so that's why I was saying to use the plan manage one. So like the environmental services, so right here it says DAC review environmental services. You'd go into here and add corrections. And so by adding corrections, you just did general corrections, you can make your comments within here, and then it would show like this. So for this is just a sample of what it would look like, but can everyone see that? Just make sure everyone can. But I have to zoom in closer. I apologize.
Okay, so this, are you saying that they don't feed each other? The comment section on that, on the DAC workflow doesn't fit into the plan corrections?
It does.
Okay.
It does right here. So see right here, it says annexation review. It says planning and zoning. And then it says review conducted by the planning and zoning department. And then correction is general. And then the comments, you could put anything in there for that. And then you can, it would have the status, you know, you could put it was, you know, completed or marked, you know, or, you know, it was approved or, you know, denied or requires resubmittal. Any one of the statuses would show up for that.
Jason, does this come out as a PDF or a Word document?
It comes out as a PDF.
Is there any way to make it come out as a Word document?
I can ask the report writers about that. Do you normally want to add things in there? That's my own.
Yeah, and I'm gonna speak on behalf of the planners. If once all the comments come in, and we pull out everybody's comments on that, we'll want to add additional verbiage to that document, or be able to pull it from there and put it on something else. If it came out as a Word document, that would be super helpful versus a PDF, because we wouldn't be able to modify it. We wouldn't be handing the applicant this letter just like this.
Okay. I'll ask Katie about that since she's the report writer assigned to you guys. I'll make sure to ask that.
That would be great. Thank you. Planners, I would be looking for then when that populates that you can just turn that into your 30-day letter.
So will we only be using that comment/condition part for comments and then doing conditions later and in something different?
And correct me if I'm wrong, planning team has been working on this. I think Veronica and Lisa have been working on trying to get your department's standard conditions in here that you could select from a list of your conditions. So when the project's ready for conditions, you could kind of check off which conditions you wanted to include, or write a few special conditions and then put them in here. Am I right, Veronica and Lisa?
That's about right. We have been going back and forth, which would be the easiest or the best solution. And I think for conditions, the conditions tab or the menu would be the better location.
Yeah, so comments, Joey, would be just when we were going through the 30-day review and you wanted things changed or had additional questions, you would put your comments there. When the review was done and we were ready to take it for hearings and we come back and ask for conditions, we're trying to set up the system so it'd be very easy for you guys to select all the conditions you want and let us know what to include in that permit resolution. So the planning team's still working through setting that condition section up for you guys.
Yeah, copy that. I just saw that the verbiage on the thing he clicked said comments/conditions. So are they both going to be under that note, or is there going to be a separate area?
Jason, could you answer that?
Are you talking about the report you're talking about, or right here? Right. This is.
He was, yeah, talking about that list.
Okay.
Joey, I think you were talking about when we were on the previous screen and it listed DAC and it had like the different processes listed.
Is it this one, or is you talking about the report? I just want to make sure. Why not? This? I'm just checking.
No, you clicked on something.
Go to workflow details, Jason.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. This. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. On the right, there was something that said comments/conditions. Maybe not. Now all I see is comments.
Yeah. Well, these comments will show up in the plan corrections report. They will show up.
Yeah, Joey, I think you're talking on the left-hand side in the list. It says DAC conditions/comments. Would it be more helpful than if it just said DAC comments?
However you guys set it up works for me. I just need clarity on where I'm putting comments and then later where I'm putting conditions. If they're I see it says under 30-day review. So if that's comments, great.
Right, yes. It will make it clear where the conditions will come out of. Thanks, Jason.
No problem.
I think you could go back to where you were clicking on the conditions part, and they were putting together, they're putting together the conditions, and hopefully this will automatically populate for all of you out of here.
Yes, and you could add, and we could separate it for, for categories, depending on, if you just want to just do planning department, we can leave that as a category. Or, for this one, I just added in temporary sign banner, just so all the conditions for temporary sign, the banner option only show up. And then you could search for, once you select that, you could also even search within, the description or the condition name. So only, a couple show up. So when I just do this, only 3 show up, but like you could do, any way you want to do it that way. You could, you don't see a whole entire list. Since the condition library, if you would add in every condition for every single department, the list could get, really long. So it would help to, ease through the process instead of, scrolling down forever to try to find things.
Excuse me, Jason. Sorry for interject. This is Kurt. Sorry to interject. We have reached the top of the hour. How much more time do you think you would need to continue this current thread, or what do you think?
This is all based on everyone else in the room. It's up to me. I'm okay.
Okay, I just don't want to stop you in an awkward place. We have reached the top of the hour, so I'm open to keeping us going for another 5 minutes or 10 minutes if we can have a nice, good closure. If not, then I'm going to suggest we stop for now. I'm going to have a pause for a moment. Is anybody just waiting to see something that I'm just about to cut them off? No?
I'm good. I think that was a good overview for DAC. Obviously, there's a lot of these pieces that still haven't been put together yet, but just to give you a general flavor of how that would operate.
Great. All right. If you hang on for just a second, please, Jason, I'm going to take the screen back for just a second. All right.
All right.
Great. I want to just, before we break, I want to show you, I've updated our schedule. Hopefully everybody can see my screen right now. Can anybody out there give me a shout out? Can you see what I'm displaying? Good. Jason, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Great. All right. So I've made some changes. The bits in yellow are the changed bits. Hopefully that's big enough for everybody. Basically, let me make that just a little bit larger here. Move this side. Basically, the 1 o'clock to 1:30 hour will be an IG Inspect overview. We do have an IG Inspect deep dive over here on this Thursday. That's, like I said, we're going to go into a deeper dive there. So the overview is just taking the use of the fact that we've got so many people, still 28 people still in attendance. So hopefully we'll come back at 1 o'clock and get that overview. Then we're going to have our GIS and parcel manager discussion for an hour. We'll have Roger from our GIS group joining us. For many of us, this is our first chance to see the GIS portion of EnerGov, and we're interested in getting your feedback on that. After that, that's where the general overview part of our training is complete, and we begin day by day for the next 2 days for building and safety, fire department, planning and public works. And then back on Thursday, we'll come back again for our IG Inspect deep dive, and we're going to add Bluebeam to the spillover piece in the late afternoon on Thursday. There were 2 action items that I see that we have not got answers back on yet. So one was I'm asking everybody to send me your list of people who will need access to the IG Inspect app. So just go ahead and send me email. It doesn't have to be right away. Just please remind yourself to do that. So I'll compile that list. And then we had a question from Neda regarding the ability for the reports to come out as Word documents, and Jason's going to look into that. So with that, was there anything else before we break, everybody? No? Okay, well then
Thanks,
come
Jason.
back. It'll be the same hyperlink. I'll probably have it up and running about 10 or 15 minutes early if you want to come back and make sure you get yourself situated early. We'll start probably about 1 o'clock. Probably at 1. Thank you all for attending.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.